The one thing in my life that I can't get enough of is early 2000s anime. I was a Toonami baby and I hold that title proudly. And one of my all-time favorite Toonami animes growing up was Zatch Bell. Even with the big hitters like Naruto, One Piece, and Dragon Ball, Zatch Bell was always on my radar and it was one of my favorite shows to watch every Saturday night in the early 2000s. In this video, I will be taking a retrospective look at Zatch Bell and exploring what makes it such an extraordinary series and why it remains one of the defining staples of Toonami. Zatch Bell premiered over 20 years ago on March 5th, 2005 on Cartoon Network's Toonami. And its debut was nothing short of bizarre. The very first episode opens with Zatch literally crashing into Kyo's room carried by a giant eagle with a yellow tail dangling from his feet. I remember how bizarre and hilarious this introduction was, and it perfectly set the tone for the wild and unpredictable journey that is Zatch Bell. In this video, I will be using the dub exclusively just because that's what I grew up on. The story of Zatch Bell centers around a 14-year-old prodigy named Kyo Takamine, whose intellect alienates him from those around him. He's cynical and withdrawn, and he initially views the world as beneath him. Now, Kyo's father, a professor living in London, knew his son all too well. So after finding Zatch unconscious in a forest, he decided to send him to live with Kyo as a way to help his son open up and finally make some friends. And I loved Zatch from the get-go. He was a nice, optimistic, and really dumb kid. And those are my favorite characteristics in my protagonist. And for the first couple of episodes, Kyo just denies Zatch and doesn't want anything to do with him. But eventually, Zatch gets into Kyo's personal life and starts bringing people to connect with Kyo, including himself. And eventually, Kyo's walls start breaking down and he invites people into his life. And Kyo learning how to open up to others kind of got sped-run because him and Zatch were destined to be partners in a battle against 100 other demons to decide the fate of the demon world. Let me back up a little bit. So it turns out that Zatch isn't just a regular kid, but he is a demon, but in the English dub they call him Mimotos, and that red book he carries is an actual spell book. So little kids or Mimotos like Zatch were sent to Earth with a spell book, and their whole goal is to find the one human counterpart that can read the spells from their book. And once every 1,000 years, Mimoto will battle against one another until there is one left standing, and that Mimoto will be crowned king. And Zatch is different than every other Mimoto because he wants peace. He wants the Mimotos to live in a world where they don't have to fight if they don't want to. But as it stands, every 1,000 years, Mimotos are forced to fight in this competition whether they want to or not. And one thing I really do like about the series is the emphasis on partnership. Each human reads spells from their partner's books, allowing the Mimoto to unleash their abilities. In turn, the Mimoto rely on their human partners not only to fight, but to strategize, trust, and grow together. It's honestly the same thing as a Pokemon battle. And one of my favorite things about this series is how they use the main characters. Kyo is a genius, and that's not just for show. In every Mimoto battle, it's always Kyo who is thinking up ways to get them out of the situation that they're in. Most of these battles come down to learning the opponent's abilities and figuring out their weaknesses. And whoever can adapt first usually wins. And luckily enough for Zatch, he has a genius like Kyo at the helm. So all the battles are smart and calculated and even use the environment that they're in. It makes for a very fun, engaging, and smart shonen. And it's not just Kyo and Zatch that have a great partnership. There are a ton of other amazing teams in this story, and they all come together to support Kyo as adversaries as well as friends. One of my favorite being Parco Falgore and Conchome. Folgore is a flamboyant Italian pop star, and Conchome is his cowardly duck-like Mimoto. And they're not strong by any means, but they're hilarious. In addition, we also have a horse Mimoto named Ponygon, and he just says meru meru the entire time. He doesn't speak English, and he kind of lives at Zatch's house as kind of a pseudo pet. And just like Folgore and Conchome, he is a comic relief character. But eventually he finds his human counterpart and becomes a full-fledged member of the team. There's also Tia and Megumi, who become really good friends with Zatch and Kyo, and they actually help each other out in tough situations pretty often. And to round out this cast, we have Brago and Sherry, who act as the main rivals for both Zatch and Kyo, and their power is overwhelming and frightening at times, but they have really good hearts and they usually side with Zatch and Kyo against evil Mimotos. In addition to an amazing cast, this show also has something that a lot of shonens really lack, and that's stakes. In a lot of shonens, there aren't that many character deaths. But in Zatch Bell, it seems like there's a death every Mimoto fight. The way to eliminate an opponent in this world is to burn the enemy's spellbook with a spell of your own. And once that book gets hit with a spell, it catches on fire and it cannot be put out. And once the spellbook burns up, the Mimoto will go back to his world. And while it isn't technically a death, it often feels like one, because the human partners know that they'll never see them again. And those final moments are often filled with heartbreaking goodbyes and last words between partners. In the beginning of the series, a lot of the villains that Zatch and Kyo would defeat were shallow and superficial, so their deaths were never really that emotional. But Kalulu's death hit really hard. She was a Mimoto that never wanted to fight, but she was forced to take part in this Mimoto battle. And every time her spell was read, she would turn into a bloodthirsty monster. And every time random Mimotos would find her and try to fight, she would hate it. But thankfully, Zatch was the one to defeat Kalulu and send her back to the Mimoto world. Her parting was tragic because she was so close with her human counterpart Lori, and she really just wanted to live on Earth in peace. But being part of this battle, she could never live in peace. And with Kalulu's departure from the human world, Zatch realizes what he must do. He wants to become the Mimoto king so he can make a world where Mimoto don't have to fight and they can live in peace and harmony. And this dream motivates Zatch throughout the rest of the story. From this point on, the series becomes a lot more structured, introducing major villains that take up multiple arcs to beat that push Zatch and Kyo to grow not just in strength, but in ideology. There are 3 major arcs in Zatch Bell: the Ancient Mimoto arc, the Faudo arc, and the Clear Note arc. And it's during these arcs where Zatch Bell is at its strongest. The battles are intense and strategic, keeping every fight unpredictable and exciting. And the emotional moments are firing on all cylinders, with some of the most heartbreaking goodbyes of the entire series, that in turn motivate the characters to grow in meaningful ways, shaped by every victory and, more importantly, every loss. Oh, and we also find out that Zatch has an evil twin that is trying to kill him. And I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't bothered by the evil twin trope. But to be fair, I was a child, so this was my first exposure to that trope, so for that reason, I give Zatch Bell a pass. And Zeno was so freaking cool. He was very mysterious and would not pop up in the series often, so when he did, you would kinda lock in. But the arcs of Zatch Bell were amazing. I really loved the Zophis arc. It actually might be my favorite arc of the series. And then the Faudo arc had the confrontation between Zatch and Zeno, which was as epic as it was emotional. And the final arc raised those stakes even higher with the ultimate villain, Clear Note. And across the arcs of Zatch Bell, it's less about who wins and more about what they stand for, their opposing ideologies. Much like Naruto, the villains in Zatch Bell have a very twisted sense of reality, and Zatch operates as the beacon of light to challenge those darker sides of human nature. When Zatch Bell ended, what stayed with us wasn't just the battles or the magic. It was the message of kindness and compassion. That courage can take the form of empathy, and that true strength is measured by how we protect the people that we care about. And beneath the antics and humor of the show, we were constantly asked to consider the value of friendship, sacrifice, and the moral choice. Zatch Bell was never a story about claiming a crown. It was about building a world worth ruling, and that kindness was at the center. And I hope that people think fondly of this series and that there was once a boy named Zatch. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you guys love Zatch Bell, please let me know in the comments below, and who knows, I might make even more Zatch Bell videos. Peace.